let's talk about how you're going to transfer your patterns to your fabric for Sashiko quilting. You're going to need to purchase a set of stencils like this, and there are 9 different patterns in this package, and you can see that I've used most of them. I'm going to show you mine in stitching just so that you can see what it's going to look like in the end. I highly recommend that you get white transfer paper, which we have at the store. And again, you're going to want your friction pen. So in preparation, I put Formflex on the back of all my blocks because I want to be hand stitching and I don't want to use a hoop. And so Formflex makes it easy for me to hand stitch through. When I do my circles like this, again, I have Formflex on the back. In this case, I absolutely had to use the transfer paper because this is my pattern for one of the circles, and I had to place the paper on top of the fabric, and I had to center this emblem on my fabric. So what I found was the easiest to do was to fold my fabric in half and just finger press it. Same thing here, and do the same thing with my emblem. I have 4 little marks, and then I could center it on my fabric, and by holding my fingers on part of it, I slid the paper underneath, and with a good blunt tipped ballpoint pen, I pushed very hard and went around all the lines so that it transferred through to my fabric. Then I lifted it on this side, put my paper underneath here, and did the same thing. My bigger circle I did with one of the plastic templates. Let me show you what it's like when you push through this paper. So I'm going to grab a pen. Here we go. So when you mark on the paper, this is a red pen so I can really see where I marked, and you can see it makes a nice fine white line. It worked beautifully for the emblems. I was able to stitch through them and not have the white disappear too quickly. But I will tell you that when I was working on the Sashiko patterns, often I had to go back and mark again. So in this case, I found it easier to use a friction pen. So you can see here is the pattern that I was using here. And with the friction pen, you're just going to line up the template on previous lines, and you want to make sure that you see the stitches come through. So sometimes it's a little hard to find them, and you want to match everything up, and then you're going to just mark with your pen on the fabric, okay? And I did go back and forth a few times to make sure that I could see the lines. So that's how you're going to mark those lines. And sometimes you may have to come back and do it again so that it's really dark enough so that you can see. But we're going to give you one of these designs to start with. Possibly this one, I don't know which one, it doesn't really matter. But I want you to be doing some of these designs to get the feel of the length of your stitches, because you'll be able to look at the lines that you mark through this template, and you're going to go over those lines so that your stitching on the top is a little longer than the spaces in between. That's your goal, to have them nice and even and more stitch on the top than amount of fabric showing. okay? Once you get the hang of it, then doing this will be very easy. But of course, here you've got a solid line. You don't have those little stitches to follow. So I want you to practice first using the templates that give you the stitches to follow. Now, another technique which somebody told me about is to mark on the back side with a pen and work from the back. I found that that was a little more difficult because you have to reverse it in your head, because of course you still want larger stitches on the front than the spaces in between. And if you mark it on the back, then you have to take a bigger stitch on the space and a smaller stitch in between, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But these are the patterns that you're going to do, and I have to tell you, once you get started, they are really, really fun to do. You're going to be using pearl cotton, and you want a really nice, sharp Sashiko needle, and you're just going up and down and up and down, and it's very relaxing, and it really does not take very much time at all once you get the hang of it. So I can't wait to see what you create and to get you started.